Hey, welcome back to the Rock Fantasy Files. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Back to the Beginning fest that just happened over the weekend. I've got a souvenir of the confetti that my good friend Johnny Mop, who went to the show, gave me today. I was hanging out at his house. This crazy Levy, who's been on the channel before, went to it actually, and he said, "Hey, Steve, let's do an episode so I can recap this." And then I invited our good friend Chris Alo, who just did a nice episode with Peter Pardo and the Sabbath Stones on the Sea of Tranquility. And I guess I mean, this was a giant. If you do, I mean, if you're watching this channel and never heard of this thing, I'd be very surprised. But it was a giant, over 10-hour festival that was held in Birmingham, England, which was Black Sabbath's birthplace near Ozzy's childhood home. I guess I would just go over a little bit. Kicking off the show was Mastodon. Each band that came out did in the early part of the day did three songs, except for Anthrax. Did they get like Anthrax only got two songs, which was weird, but Mastodon did Sopronaut. I'm just going to tell you the covers. Rival Sons came out, did Electric Funeral. Anthrax did Into the Void. Hailstorm did Perry Mason. And we had Lamb of God did Children of the Grave.
That was good.
Then there was the first of the superstar jams with all the different bands, with Ultimate Sin, with Lizzie Hale singing Shot in the Dark, David Dremaine from Disturbed, Sweet Leaf,
And
and
don't forget, Jakey Lee was out there for
yeah,
those two.
Jake. I don't have all the information, but yeah, I'll let you go over some of that. Alice in Chains came out, did Fairies Wear Boots. Gojira came out and did Under the Sun, which I thought was very good. There was a second jam that came out that had Billy Corgan singing. It had also had Sammy Hagar, all, and then had a big surprise. And then we had Papa from Ghost doing Bark at the Moon. And then we had a surprise guest of Steven Tyler come out and do three songs. And I was watching this at work going like, wow, what Sabbath or Ozzy song is Tyler going to do? But he didn't. He just did two Aerosmith songs and a Zeppelin cover. Then Pantera came out, did Planet Caravan, Electric Funeral. Then you had Tool come out and do Hand of Doom, which I thought was very good. Slayer came out, did a little bit of a longer set. They did Wicked World, which I thought was a great cut. Guns N' Roses came out next and really dug into the deep stuff. And some of Chris Alo's favorite songs from favorite Black Sabbath albums, It's All Right, which Bill Ward originally sang on the original album, Never Say Die, and Junior's Eyes, and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. They did four of their six songs as Sabbath coverage, which I thought was very cool. Metallica came out next and did Hole in the Sky, and they did Johnny Blade. Boy, a lot of Never Say Die love here.
Yeah, three
And
of
then,
them.
of course, Ozzy came out and between himself and with Black Sabbath, did nine songs. The Ozzy set was I Don't Know, Mr. Crowley, Suicide Solution, Mom, I'm Coming Home, which I heard, which we'll hear from Mr. Levy, Miss Crazy Levy, and Crazy Train. But there wasn't I was told there wasn't a dry eye in there during Mom, I'm Coming Home. And I tell you, my wife, I looked over her watching it and she was using a Kleenex. So Black Sabbath, of course, did War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid. So that was a rundown of some of the bands. It was I rented the pay per view, as did Chris. Chris had a party at his house. I watched part of it at the house in the morning. Took my laptop to work. Was having it on the side while I was helping customers, so I missed stuff. And then I actually rewatched it on Sunday when my wife had the day off. Watch from Alice in Chains further through, which we left off on. And then I've watched it still. That stream, which they said was going to end on Monday, is still going because I just watched it at my friend's house. He was having a little pool get together. We had
No
it on
kidding.
outside, and he was, of course, he was at the show. He was totally stunned. He didn't realize. I was like, no, put it on. It's still going.
Yeah, if I
As
knew that, I would have paid for it because I still
Wow.
hadn't really seen any of the
For
pro
30
shots.
bucks, it was a great deal. So anyhow,
Yes.
Levy was there, and I brought Chris along to ask some questions. Levy, how was the experience?
I mean, as you'd imagine, it's fucking amazing from start to finish. Got there Friday morning, got to the hotel, took a nap. My friend Kirk, you don't know him, but he's a pinball guy.
Yeah.
He runs a pinball bar out there in Birmingham. He showed us around. He's a local. So I took a little nap about 2 o'clock. We got down there. It's really funny. I mean, we didn't really need the guy, but it was awesome to have Kirk with us. Because you get out of the train, and right there is that mural you've been looking at for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that was the first stop. And I wasn't by myself. We had a few friends at this point. So we did that. We went to the museum and the mural's gorgeous, huge, really cool, and no lines because it's so big. You could pretty much do what you want there, take goofy photos, get together. Then we went to the museum, the Birmingham Museum. Right next to the gorgeous works of art is the Ozzy exhibition. And that was kind of like, going to like a rock star's yard sale. A lot of paintings, a lot of gold records. The Grammys were there. You could breeze through that in about 20 minutes. That was pretty cool. And it was free, which was nice.
Okay.
There were people on the street handing out Sabbath maps. Actually, here's one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw a picture of that somewhere on Facebook. I thought I was blown away by it.
And you can have this, Keeler. I'll bring it next time I go to the shop.
Oh,
If you want to display it somewhere.
Thank you.
It's kind of cool. There were people taking handfuls of it. I just like, it's a flyer. So I took one.
Mhm.
After that, we got some food at his friend's bar called Bonehead. Apparently, we missed some Osbournes by about 5 minutes. I don't know which ones. I think Jack was there. I don't know. Anyway, they were doing custom shirts. So I got a Bonehead Bloody Bonehead shirt.
That's very cool.
They had a bunch of Sabbath themed shirts, and it was a really cool place. If you're ever in Birmingham, go to Bonehead. Their specialty is chicken sandwiches, so we got some of that. After that, we headed to the bridge, which I'm sure you guys have all seen. That's a few years old, I believe, and that was actually a long line for that. But at that point, we'd had kind of such a fast pace. We'd already visited the mural 3 times as other friends had shown up. We just kind of stood in the line and waited 40 minutes and waited our turn to take the pictures on the bridge, and that was really fun. By this time, we had about 8 or 9 people with us. Then after that, I think that was it for the Sabbath. Oh, the Crown. This is you've probably seen pictures of this too. This is an old pub that the first Earth gig was played at in
Oh yeah.
1968. It has a legitimate claim to the birthplace of heavy metal. It's currently unoccupied. The locals are trying to save it as a historic site. But it looks really cool on the outside. It's probably 200 or 300 years old. It's another one of these old pubs.
Wow.
We just took some pictures, and then at that point went to my friend's bar Tilt, and we just kind of hung out and drank and played pinball and started getting ready for the next day. So that was day one. That was the tour. Everybody was doing it. Like you said, Chris, people were walking around and just kind of following the crowd and going to all these cool sites. And I had to say, people couldn't have been nicer. Birmingham was thrilled to have our company and our money, and everything was really cool. And that was pretty much it. Went back to the hotel, had a few drinks, and started thinking about the show.
Were there a lot of unauthorized merchandise out on these streets where you were walking? There a
At
lot
that
of
time, I would say
parking lot shirts or type of what we call the United States?
there was a guy, a young entrepreneur in the bridge line, which again was the only real line and the slowest line. It's about 40 minutes or so, maybe a little longer. And he was walking around with the poster that you've been seeing for months. He was walking around with t-shirts.
Okay.
25 pounds, a little hefty for me for a bootleg, and I had some official merchandise. Oh, I forgot to say, Kirk, our friend Kirk Sadler, he lives a 30-minute walk from the venue, Villa Park. So on Thursday, when we started seeing on Facebook, I was still here in New York, that the merch was being unleashed. I was like, hey, you got to go buy us a bunch of merch. So he walked through the bad neighborhood. He walked past Ozzy's house. He took a picture of the iron void that Ozzy carved into the house 60 years ago. I don't know if you know this story. There's a video on YouTube from some MTV visit 30 years ago where he saw his childhood home, and he goes, "This is iron void," and it's just carved in there. I used to sit here and make up band names. It's a pretty fucking cool name, really. But the iron thing is still there.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. And he picked us up all the merch. So all my friends got some merch. I had already ordered some in the pre-sale, but I didn't want to go empty-handed. So he picked me up the one I'm wearing here, which is also was a 500 limited lithograph. And he grabbed me one of those. Those are going for $900 now. I got pairs getting framed. So cool that he was able to do that for us. And pick this one up. If any of you guys are looking for merch on the site, because you can order the stuff and it comes in August, I would definitely recommend this cool shirt. Not only is it a cool design, this is actually a painting based on a photo. And the
Oh,
painting was in that museum that we looked at. A local guy just did it, a few weeks ago, basically. And it's super soft and comfy. This is the shirt to get. I actually ordered another one because I know I'm going to wear this one out. So we had the merch. Oh, and he brought that all to his bar. So Friday we all took that home. One more thing. The lithos at the shop. This one was limited to 2,000 copies. You've seen this image many times.
sure.
So, and look at the number I got. It's fucking kills me.
So who autographed that?
667. I got it.
Wow.
Had a
So
T.
close.
Missed it.
The neighbor of the beast.
The neighbor of the beast. These are actually my friends who went to the show. I had them all
Oh,
signed.
okay.
That's cool.
Because Kirk was there's another story. I was working the backstage area because he was taking care of Jersey Jack, brought 3 pinball machines back there. So he brought a bunch of gold pens for everybody to sign. The artists all signed that Guns N' Roses game, and they auctioned it for charity.
Wow.
The whole Kirk thing is pretty wild too. All during the day, he's like sending me photo. Oh, Tony's here at 6. He sends me a picture of him with Tony. Sends me a picture of him with Ozzy after the shows. He had a great time. But
It sounds it.
so that's it for the merch, and then we were ready to rock. So I hope that answered your question, Chris.
Yeah.
It is amazing though, just to hear how I was mentioning this before we went live, but it is amazing to hear how just all encompassing Sabbath was to the city of Birmingham. Because as I mentioned,
2017 for the final show.
Say again.
You went in 2017 for the
No, I went in 1999. The original final Black Sabbath shows were
it was sold as that.
Yeah, it was. So the 1999 farewell tour was billed as the Last Supper, and I had to fly to England twice because the first set of farewell Sabbath shows were postponed, and that was in August of August 1999. That was supposed to be in London, and I went anyway. And then I went back in December of 1999. They did 2 gigs at the NEC Arena in Birmingham, but as I had mentioned, nobody gave a shit. It was just Sabbath doing their 2 gigs. Of course, other than the fans, nobody cared. I don't remember anything in the city, any kind of celebration. Of course, the internet, was 26 years earlier than this, so you couldn't find the addresses of old homes and old pubs to go to. It was just, oh yeah, this is the city that Sabbath was in, and that was it. So it is amazing to hear the difference between the original tour, the original farewell tour, which was the Last Supper. Then the next farewell tour was 2016, 2017. That was the end. And now we have back to the beginning.
I feel like the British, if you hang around long enough, they really start to appreciate you. And that's almost the case with, Sabbath. Like, they didn't really get any love anywhere until a friend of mine was asking, like, oh, why is Alice in Chains on the bill? Why is Billy Corgan here? And I was like, those were the first guys. Pantera, obviously they're a metal band, but those were the first guys to really praise Sabbath. The first guys who were popular and big. I mean, Rolling Stone never cared about Sabbath, never said anything about Sabbath. But I remember in the early 90s, when I was in high school, you'd read these interviews like Soundgarden, Nirvana, they all loved Sabbath. And it was the first time you ever heard anything nice about it. And it takes people a while to come around sometimes. And I think Birmingham really, really has come around and really appreciates, what their town birthed. And when it comes time for Judas Priest to do the same thing, we'll probably see it again.
Yeah, for sure.
By the way, did you know Duran is from Birmingham? But
Duran.
That I did not know, but hey,
Not-
they were
not
pretty
to say-
popular. They're still popular. They're still
I saw him in,
they're still an
Amsterdam.
arena act.
I saw him in Amsterdam a couple weeks ago, but
Wow.
but not what you think of with Birmingham,
Yeah.
But Chris, you said that 99 was a farewell. I thought that was 99 was the reunion year.
It was the same. The 1997 was the Ozfest in America, which was without Bill Ward.
Yeah.
Then in December of 97 They reunited with Bill Ward,
Yeah.
recorded the reunion record.
Yes.
The tour, then in 98, they went to
Okay.
tour Europe, but Bill Ward was sick. So they had
Yeah.
to replace Bill Ward with Vinny Appice. That's why somebody posted on your page the other day, Steve.
Yes.
Well, why would Vinny Appice even get invited? He never did anything with Ozzy, which is bullshit
Yeah.
because he did 2 Ozzy tours. The
Mhm.
98 tour, he played in Europe, playing drums for the
Mhm.
Ozzy version of Sabbath. And then on the 99 US tour in America, at least the first couple months, he was the backup drummer in case Bill Ward got sick.
Mm.
I remember
Around, right?
I remember hanging out with him at the Meadowlands, and he
Yeah.
was like, "This is the greatest gig of my life. I'm getting paid to just hang out," because
Yeah,
his drum kit was right behind Bill Ward's. And if
Yeah,
anything happened to Bill Ward, they just pushed that drum kit out of the way, and
Wow.
Vinny went in.
he had the Jeff Hostetler gig.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so yeah, I don't know if you remember, Steve, but so 99 was they started the and I don't know how it was announced initially because 26 years ago I can't fucking remember.
I
But
I agree.
it's the that touring cycle started on December 31st, 1998. I believe it was Arizona.
Mhm.
And it was Sabbath, Megadeth, Slayer, Pantera, and I want to say Soulfly. They
Mm.
played on New Year's Eve at this big outdoor event
Okay.
in Arizona.
Yeah.
That kicked off the tour, which in our area, Steve, we saw Sabbath, Pantera, and the Deftones
That's what I saw.
played the Meadowlands and Nassau Coliseum.
Mhm.
Then that summer of 99, and I think maybe by the summer of 99, it was announced that this was now the farewell tour. And that was
Okay.
Ozfest 1999, which
Mm.
shit, going from memory. God,
Yeah.
who the
I
hell
have to
was it?
Google that one.
I don't remember. I don't even remember
Yeah,
who
well,
else was on the bill.
yeah, sure.
I think that was Rob Zombie, I want to say.
Probably.
And then they did a third leg where they did just a handful of dates in America with Drain STH. They did like Jones Beach, and then they
Okay.
flew to Europe, did a European run, and they ended it. And this whole tour was called The Last Supper, and
Okay. I remember that now.
they ended with 2 shows at the NEC Arena in Birmingham, and they filmed The Last Supper VHS on that tour.
Okay.
But it was complete. Everybody forgets about it because okay, so they broke up in December of 1999, but they got back together for a radio show in June or July of 2000 in California. And then in 2001, Black Sabbath was back on the Ozfest in America, headlining Ozfest. So that was the shortest retirement ever.
Yes, it was. I was talking to my friend John who attended, and he said that, and Levy had mentioned to me this earlier, that getting something to eat inside the venue was very tough for Levy. John cemented that with him when he was in a different area. He had the side stage experience, but he didn't have it with his wife. And he said that side stage was that upper elevated platform to stand on. And if you weren't right at the end of it, it wasn't a great experience.
So you got to be on the rail for something like that.
And he'd go back onto the floor with his wife and watch most of the show, not even from up there.
Wow.
But he said that to get food, he lived off a bag of potato chips for that whole day. He said you would have to wait in line forever, and you weren't. And at least he said maybe the signage wasn't there or something. They waited in line for 25 minutes to find out that this stand only had chili fries, and he didn't want that.
I was prepared for this. I had a big English breakfast at the hotel. Plus, we were ingesting various substances and we're that hungry. And I just, I wasn't going to miss any of this in line. If you left for 10 minutes, you'd miss something. If you went for 30 minutes, you'd miss an entire set and then some. And even between the brief moments between the sets, it was only 5 or 10 minutes most of the time. They'd have cool stuff on the screens like that Jack Black, Mr. Crowley with the kids. They'd have messages from people. So I really just didn't want to, I brought a little food with me. And I just didn't really drink that much because I didn't want to, some sections I heard were worse than others. Ours was bad. It was like an hour after the show got going to get beer. Water
Wow.
was a problem because we had cups. And thank goodness the bathrooms were fine. They had those old school Fenway troughs to pee in. And if I needed to go take a leak, I could be from my seat and back within like 2 minutes. So I didn't want to
Okay.
wait the show in line. We just kind of sucked it up. And a lot of people are bitching about it, but it's like I have to say I'm glad the floor I'm sure was amazing, but it was nice to just be able to not piss in the cup and all that stuff. And
Whereabouts were you sitting, Levy?
we were, if it was like Madison, if it was like Giant Stadium, be on like the 40-yard line looking at the opposite end zone on the lower level. It's
Okay.
not a huge place. I mean, it's only 40,000 seat
Yeah, I was
football.
gonna say, I think it was 40,000 was the number I heard, right?
And
Yeah.
what did you pay for a ticket, mass?
I don't remember. It was a hotel deal. So
Oh, okay.
I think with the hotel and the 2 nights in the hotel and the tickets, it came out to about 1,600 US between
Now,
myself and a
I
friend.
do have a question with that because those were I tried to get a ticket myself on the 3 pre-sales, and the only pull I got on between the 3 pre-sales was the hotel experience ticket. And I remember passing it up. It was around $800 a ticket. You
That's
had
it.
to buy 2 tickets to
Yeah.
get the one hotel room. But I'm thinking, well, wait a second. Most hotels, you got to check in at 3 o'clock. If the show starts at 11, how the fuck how am I supposed to do this? So, and I remember and plus those particular tickets were the worst seats in
Oh,
the house. They were the uppers. So
well,
I
I
was
had
like,
literally
forget it.
the first choice because I discovered these tickets. On the second day of the pre-sales, I knew about this link because I'd seen it earlier. I was like, that's odd, hotel experience. And I kept clicking on it. The second day after being, 50,000 in the queue or whatever, I clicked on this and there were just like 800 tickets there. Not a single one had been sold. Nobody knew about it. I bought these. I told a bunch of my friends about it. And then I posted on Reddit and
Wow.
they all bought tickets and they disappeared. What I did, and you're right about that, is I was going to come in a day early anyway. So you were
Ah,
able to extend the package for an extra night before
Yeah.
for 200 pounds. So that wasn't an issue.
that makes sense because otherwise I'm like, how the
Yeah.
fuck what are you going to
We
go
need
to
a
the
place
show
to
with
stay
your
anyway.
luggage? I'm
I
like, this doesn't make any sense.
I
Yeah.
still remember that cold winter night when me and you were hanging out with my friend Ben Worth, and we were at the Gramercy Theater seeing Incantation with Decapitated, right? And then we dropped you off at your apartment because you had some flags you got for me from the Buccaneers game.
Oh,
And
that's
you were
right.
saying I got to get up at like 5 in the morning because I'm trying to get tickets for the Ozzy, I call it Ozfest, even though it's back to the beginning.
Well, I struck out on those, but like I
But
said
I
later,
remember that night well, and we were just talking about that. And then, of course, my friend John and Heather were in that queue that morning, and John was on the phone, and she was in North Carolina. He lives up here, and she's like, "I can get 2 side stage experiences. I can get
2,000
them. I can
piece.
get
Do it.
them." And he goes, "Yeah, just buy them. Just buy them." He had no idea how much they cost, and when he hit when she said she just hit and bought them, I don't think she even looked. And she goes, "It just maxed out my credit card
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like
I mean that's
7,000.
7 grand. That's what I had
for the
heard.
for the
Yeah.
And I
pair."
have to say, I'm glad I didn't pull those in one of those 2 pre-sales because I might have bought them. So thank
Yeah,
you. That didn't happen.
And I mean, the thing, not that I would have, as much as I love Sabbath, bought the $7,000 ticket, but I'm like, Jesus, for a $7,000 ticket, this show has got to completely blow your dick off. And,
to
it
me,
sounds like you had a great time. I'm sure everybody that went
yeah.
was there, had a great time, but
It's a lot of
that's a
money.
lot of TNT to blow your dick off.
A lot of money.
And
Yeah.
and it wasn't like the most comfortable situation as you look because it was just people standing on a rail, sort of
Yeah.
like that
You
Irving
didn't have to
Plaza
stay
high
there.
rise thing that I thought was going to be comfortable when I went to a show at Irving. Well, you got to
They were
stay there.
also able to go down to the Golden Circle, but again, for that
That's
kind of
what they did. So yeah, he spent
Right.
most of his time down there, and he had
look,
to.
I'm used
He
to. I'm
actually.
used to. In
He,
my old age, I'm used to getting good seats.
oh yeah, me too.
Remember when we were front row for Priest and Sabaton, and I got
Oh
you
yeah,
and
front
all.
row for Priest and Deep Purple too. Like
Yeah, and
Bethel
for
Woods.
this show, I was happy to have a seat
Yeah.
that was good. and comfortable, and I can
And a
sit
seat
down
because
near
you're
the
there for
bathroom.
10 hours. You
Yeah,
want to be able to sit down at times.
we were there about 11 hours. We probably got there
Yeah.
about noon. Yeah. So the show itself, anything you guys want to know?
Well, I was going to say there's been, not that I want to know for myself, to be honest, but there's been a lot of chatter online. It's unfortunate you didn't see the pay-per-view yet, but there's been a lot of chatter online that a lot of people have said, oh, Ozzy sounded better on the pay-per-view than he did to those people in the stadium.
Oh.
Could it have been that there was some trickery or some helping? I don't know if that's true, but
I'm gonna give you the short version because before it all got taken down, I did have a chance to see, I think, Paranoid and War Pigs when I was on the plane. First of all, Ozzy's solo set. I'm sure you guys have seen Ozzy. He can be on key, he can be
yeah,
off key. This is Ozzy for the last 20 or 30 years. We all know Ozzy. For the solo stuff, he was really good. He sounded really good. Everything was in key. Mom, I'm Coming Home was a little, I don't know if he was emotional. I don't know if he was tired. That
Yeah.
one was a little quiet, but we all sung for him. And it was fine. By the way, the sound was not so hot in the stadium.
really,
It got better.
overall.
It's
I
just,
mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised because it's an outdoor stadium. What outdoor stadium does sound good?
but this is an ancient outdoor stadium,
Yes.
and it's got these big metal overhangs everywhere. And the sound wasn't great. It was good enough. We were there for the show, but that was Ozzy's set. Sabbath set, I definitely noticed he was a little flat for War Pigs. He was a little flat for NIB, which didn't matter because we were all singing. I thought he fucking nailed Iron Man. And then Paranoid, he was a little this and that. And I did watch, like I said, I watched Paranoid and I watched War Pigs. And it's my opinion that in the 2 hour delay, they did in fact correct that. They didn't pipe anything
Okay.
in, they didn't lip sync anything, but they must have corrected his pitch a little bit. And whatever, I don't care. It's
Right.
like
It's
it sounded good for you guys.
yeah, it was fine.
It sounded great for us at the show. But that's probably what happened. And whatever,
Yeah.
Ozzy, I'm sure, is oblivious. And it sounded what I saw on the stream sounded amazing. It wasn't auto-tuned or anything like that. They just made Ozzy look as good as they could, I thought.
Right.
I don't
Makes
really have a
sense.
problem with that. He was really singing. There was no backing tapes. Even for his solo stuff, the last couple tours I'd seen, he always had kind of a backing track that was running under it. There was none of that. He didn't lip sync. There were no tracks for Sabbath. And it sounded pretty good to me. And, that's what I'll say about that.
You could really tell how badly he wanted to stand up,
Oh, for
get out of
sure.
that seat. It was kind of heartbreaking at times.
I will say
And
during his set,
then the feed cuts off at the very end, and it looks like he's yelling
Oh yeah. I was
where are my friends? He's
no,
looking.
no, no. I mean, you could see plain as day. He's the last one up there on the feed. That's why I wanted to ask how it was in person because you could see Ozzy turns around and he's in the chair and it looks like he says, "Turn this fucking stage around," because it looked like from what we saw on pay-per-view he was left out there. Now, since we saw the picture that Geezer Butler came back with
so
the cake.
the cake wasn't on the screen.
No, not at all.
No, they cut it right off, and they showed kind of the fireworks, and they panned away from him, and like he said, he was yelling like get back
Yeah.
on the stage.
Which,
Turn the
to be
stage.
honest, watching it on home was completely anticlimactic. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
I will say there was no final bow or anything. The fireworks were going crazy.
Yeah.
I was kind of far away, so I didn't notice Ozzy yelling anything. Keep in mind, he says fuck every 3 words.
true.
But I did see Geezer come out with his cake. I didn't realize it was a cake. I thought it was like a plaque or something.
Yeah, okay.
We were all just so like, I mean,
Right. You've been there all day. You're tired.
yeah, I just wasn't really sure what was going on. But I knew there was no final bow. And then I also
Which
knew,
I found, not to interrupt, I found extremely strange
yeah, it was a
how,
little odd they didn't come out. And
yeah.
but I was also aware that where we were situated, we could be out of that venue in about 90 seconds.
Oh,
And
wow.
we knew they were done, and we were like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So at that point, we vacated and started walking the 5 minutes toward the Aston Tavern, where within 10 minutes we had a Guinness and a seat, And within an hour, the car that I booked 4 months ago, miraculously, I get a text from Muhammad, and he's like, "I'm out here, silver Mercedes," and we were out of there.
That's
So
amazing.
Wow.
it was fucking amazing because I hadn't heard anything from this car service, and they just got us out of there, and then we were back at the hotel drinking and hanging out. So I did hear about this thing with the cake, and they definitely didn't just ditch him up there, but it is a little odd that there wasn't some kind of a big. And I kind of thought everybody would come out, live
And I
aid.
was just going to say that we mentioned it, Steve, on the video yesterday. I thought, well, you've got a literal army of amazing musicians.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you do like the Lord of the Rings thing, where they all come out and bow to Sabbath, and then everybody bows to the audience?
Almost like a WWE kind of thing.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
just
like a
seems
wrestling
so
where
anti-climactic. When you see
they
the
all
pay-per-view,
stand.
you'll see how anticlimactic it
The,
is.
the end of it felt a little rushed, and that just might have had something to do with that curfew that they were dealing with. You know how these places are with these. I mean,
Yes,
it's
we
literally
have heard
right
about
in the
that.
middle of fucking town.
So when you're in the stands, I guess another question from me would be, other than Ozzy and Sabbath, what got the biggest pops? That were anything like, was it Ronnie, was the guy from the Stones walking out, Ronnie Wood? Was it
That
Steven
was some serious.
Tyler?
That was some serious star power when Tyler and Ronnie Wood came out. And one thing I noticed is those guys didn't go anywhere near each other. I guess they're just you get that size star together. I mean, Ronnie Wood was like rocking out with like Rudy Sarzo. And
Yeah.
it's like I was kind of waiting for the moment where Ronnie and Steven got together. But I mean, everybody was jazzed all day. By
Yeah.
the time the meat of the order came in, people were a little tired, I think. Like Slayer, Metallica, like it had been a long day already, and
Mm.
people were rocking out, but the pops, weren't huge as far as the crowd.
Hmm.
But everybody was focused, everybody was watching it, and we were all kind of saving our energy for the end.
Now, did you guys it was leaked online a day or two before what the running lineup was, or what
Yeah.
the expected running lineup was, but at the event, did you know, okay, this is the actual lineup and the times?
We had seen that, yeah, and
Okay.
it
But
stuck
that's
very.
that's all you were going on? There was nothing at the venue?
No, 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 no. They would just
Wow.
say, when the next band was coming up, they would announce it or
Okay.
But
Pantera next.
certainly wasn't expecting Ronnie Wood. That was a surprise.
Because I know
Or Youngblood.
I had a ton of people asking me, just in for the pay-per-view, the days, leading up to it, well, what the running lineup was. I'm like, I don't know. They didn't announce shit. It was just, the pay-per-view starts at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Right, right. But
Now I talked to a couple other people that were there in person on the phone today. Keith Salentano was a rock photographer. He's toured in Europe. He was giving some of my friends advice on what not to bring over there, not to bring weed in there, not to bring this. Just go over there, don't get detained. But he was talking about his experience with my friend Bill Gallucci. It's also from here in Middletown, New York. They said that the Sammy Hagar thing was a little disappointing for them.
well, first of all,
They thought he kind of butchered up the lyrics on Flying High again. And
again, everybody was singing so loud, it was hard to tell.
yeah, okay.
He looked like a bit of a douchebag up there in his fucking free tequila shirt. I mean, whatever. That's very on brand for him. And then he did like a Montrose song that nobody fucking knew. You probably would have known.
It was a big song for Montrose, but yeah.
Yeah, you
I
probably would.
said that was kind of a letdown between that's what they said. And
Yeah.
he actually
I mean,
stood up for a lot of people were complaining about Axl, and he really stood up for the Axl Rose set. He enjoyed it.
I was
Right,
gonna say, on the actual pay-per-view, yeah, you could tell that Sammy Hagar completely fucked up Flying High again.
Yeah.
He sounded fine on his own song,
Yeah.
Rock Candy, but yeah, I questioned, well, how many people in the audience know this? But I'll be honest too, and I don't know. Here's a great question, because there really was, as far as the set list goes, there was a good amount of obscure Sabbath songs performed, like Johnny Blade and
Oh,
It's
yeah.
All Right,
Never
and,
Say
and
Die.
Junior's Eyes. Like, how did those songs go over with the general audience?
In section B2, it all went over great. I mean,
Okay.
I loved it. I loved that Guns N' Roses did Never Say Die, and then fucking and then fucking Junior's Eyes, and it was really good. I mean, yeah, everybody shits on Axl, and when he's singing a Guns N' Roses song, he sounds like shit because you remember what he's supposed to sound like, and now but doing Junior's Eyes, he sounded great to me, and Never Say Die, that was cool too. And it's like, you didn't expect to hear those songs.
Right.
Everybody in my section, there's a guy from Brazil next to me. He knew the words to every song, and people were singing, and it seemed well received to me. I doubt there were many tourists at this show who just know Paranoid and Iron Man.
So Lovey, the other question, I know that Chris is, it's a burning question, whether this is real or whether this is an AI story, because half the shit you see on Facebook, you don't even know. There's still this story going around that says that a band or an artist was kicked off of Oz, of the back to the beginning, and this could go on forever. Like, people said it's Megadeth. I don't know.
I've heard Megadeth, Motley Crue, Kiss, Rob Zombie. Today, a guy's like, I swear it's Mammoth Van Halen.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this story will not. It just keeps gaining steam.
I heard
Weird
Slipknot.
story.
I
I
heard
don't see
Slipknot
why.
too.
Yeah, I heard Slipknot too. I heard they demanded a large fee, but that's
the one guy from Slipknot proposed to Kelly Osbourne.
Right.
Oh, keep in mind, there's like 20 guys in Slipknot, so
there is.
Or their manager could have pissed them off. I don't know why Sharon decided she had to say that. It's like, because now people are still talking about that stupid
Maybe
story.
it's
But
just to
that's
get us
it. That's
going.
it exactly. People are still talking about it.
Was it Ian Gillan in Deep Purple?
Well, funny enough, and here's another question for you. Since you were there, was there, because I know a lot of people have asked me, and I'm like, don't be stupid. But a lot of people asked me, well, geez, why didn't they do Heaven and Hell or Mob Rules or Trashed? And I'm like, this was the Ozzy farewell organized by Ozzy's wife. So I did two-part question. Did anybody that you talked to at the show actually expect to hear a non-Ozzy song, number one? And then number two, the only hint that I saw of anything non-Ozzy was the drummer of Mastodon.
Yes, I was
when he
just
came
say
out
that.
for his set, he had a Heaven and Hell tour shirt on.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yes.
That's really cool.
But you could. I don't know if you noticed, Steve, and I watched it twice on a fucking big screen, 135-inch screen. He was bent over, so I couldn't see what the front was.
Yeah.
But on the back, it plainly said Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell.
Yeah.
I think everybody knew what to expect, and I didn't see anybody wearing any Dio stuff. I just had my cool glitter Sabbath shirt from the old days. It was what it was. I didn't think there was really room for all that. I was expecting someone to just sneak like a Heaven and Hell riff into a song.
That's what I thought. Maybe like a riff or a
But
drum fill or something. I don't know.
That's it. By the way, the Mastodon guy, I'm sure you saw it on the replay, but we could see it on the big screens. He had the lyrics to Supernaut on his snare.
Yes, he did.
Yes. And it looked like he had him on his snare and again on the floor.
Yeah, I don't know if they were different lyrics or a different verse, but I saw that. I thought it was cool.
And that's an excellent point, because that's a sort of an ironic thing on the pay-per-view. The first half, apparently he was singing, but it didn't come out on pay-per-view. People who were there said you could hear it.
Yeah,
but,
you could hear it, and it sounded great. And it was a great Sabbath song to start out with. I heard, and I said, Supernaut.
Right away. Yeah.
And the guy in front of me was like, what? That's not so. And then, it was great.
I thought they did a great job with it. But yeah, I don't know if that's been corrected if you go look at the feed now.
Well, I'm going to say
that's a good question.
Steve, that's a great question.
Claim they may have doctored some of it. Could they have fixed that too?
But here's a weird thing, right? So I watched, the pay-per-view as it was originally played, right? And when it came to Alice in Chains playing Hand of Doom, I think it was Hand of Doom, wasn't it?
They did Fairies Wear Boots.
Fairies Wear Boots. I'm sorry. Thanks for correcting.
Cool did Hand of Doom.
So when they did Fairies Wear Boots, they lost the sound, right?
The beginning or just during the song?
No, on the pay-per-view. But they kept playing the song, but there was just no audio.
No.
But what they did was later on the show, during some of the changeovers, they would cut to earlier in today, and then they replayed Fairies Wear Boots by Alice in Chains with the corrected audio.
Oh,
But here's where it gets weird. So I watched the replay, the whole 10 hours, again, the very next day. And in the first part of the show, when it came to Alice in Chains again, the audio still dropped out. So they
that
never
must have
they
been a
never
problem on
corrected
their
it
end. Yeah.
on the first time.
There were certainly no audio issues like that at the show.
Gotcha.
And you probably noticed this, they did fuck up the intro to that song. But then they got it together and it sounded fucking awesome.
I
But
tell
they
you
kind of
what,
in the beginning, they had the wrong dun, 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 dun. The drummer and guitar player weren't together. But
I downloaded it and put it on my laptop running HDMI to my 65-inch screen, and I tell you what, the picture was great.
Yes.
Like it was
I
a
can't
really
can't
clear
wait to see this thing.
Yeah, I was shocked for the 30
I don't have
bucks.
the newest television either. My TV's probably about 15 years old, so but it looked great.
But yeah, I was absolutely shocked for $30 of how good it looked, the camera angles, how good it sounded. I've said it to plenty of people since. I was like, Jesus, I would do this once a month if a band's, if Iron Maiden did a big show in Europe and just throw a couple bands together for $30 to get friends together. It was a blast.
And if I wasn't there, I certainly would have watched it at home. And
my friend was there, was so happy to be able. He rented it anyhow.
Yeah,
I don't know why, because he wasn't going to be home, and originally it said it was going to be cut off on Monday. He had the happiest guy ever, and I told him, "Hey, this thing's still on." I checked it this morning, and he's been watching at his house. He's having some of his friends over tonight, and he said, "Now I really get to see the pro shot of everything." And
that's amazing, Steve, because they had said it was a 48-hour window, and that was it.
And it was still going this afternoon, and
you can't buy it now. Like you can't actually buy.
Well, I was just going to say, it's probably. Another question I wanted to ask, because it did, there's a lot of commotion about it, but I wanted to see how it was at the actual venue. When David Draymond came out from Disturbed, you absolutely could hear some boos from the crowd in the audience on TV, but just wondering how bad that was at the show itself.
It was quite audible. It happened twice.
Okay.
I knew that some people were pissed off at him for the Israel stuff.
Right.
Everybody got over it. He was good, a little bland, but he did a good job singing the Ozzy stuff. And I don't know, people have a right to say it.
Now he did 2 songs, right?
I know he did Shot in the Dark. And
he did Shot in the Dark, and didn't he do Sweet Leaf, I want to say?
I think he did.
I don't remember.
I think it was Sweet Leaf.
I was a little surprised that he did 2 songs. Originally, they advertised Jonathan Davis from Korn.
But he drop out before him, and
he did a promo. Where, hey, Ozzy, thank you. But
I missed that. That was one of my bathroom trips. But apparently, he did a promo.
He was he was on tour in Europe, and something must not have worked out with him.
Fred Durst also wasn't there.
I thought, well,
they did. But did you see the video?
I did not.
Fred Durst did changes.
Yeah.
Oh, he sent in a tape.
Sort of like the Jack Black thing. Yeah. To me. I thought that was the low light of anything. Was that Fred?
That was pretty bad.
I found that song pretty annoying with him doing it.
It was a really nice pop in, and probably my favorite, just kind of super group guy of the day, was KK. That was great. He just came in looking like KK.
Yeah,
even from the cheap seats, you could see him doing all his KK stuff. They did fucking, and Billy Corgan can't fucking sing, but who gives a shit? We were all singing Breaking the Law, and then they fucking killed on Snowblind. That was the point my friend Jacob turned around and he just looked at me because that's historic. That was great to see KK. I mean, Priest needed to be there, needed to be represented, and it was. And I was really, really glad to see him. And, highlights, lowlights, I just had such a good time that everything was good. If Billy Corgan's singing, you just sang a little louder.
Sure. So that was a live experience that you didn't get from watching it on TV, where you're there, and it's just a tribute to Ozzy and Black Sabbath. We got about 7 minutes left on here, so anything you want to run by. I just wanted to make a mention. There was also a pretty big show in Hanover, Germany on Sunday, and that's why Judas Priest supposedly wasn't involved. It was the Scorpions' 60th anniversary with Judas
Was that
Priest.
not Saturday night? Was that not the same night of the gig?
No, it was Saturday. Yeah, it was
Oh,
Judas
that was
Priest
Saturday.
and
Okay, so
Alice
that was,
Cooper.
Judas
It was the
Priest
same
and Alice
day.
Cooper.
That's
And
why
I
they
haven't
weren't
really
big.
heard anything much about that. Where they said there were special guests, and I saw that Uli John Roth
Yeah,
was going to play with them, but then
he was, and then they kicked him off the show for some
Really?
reason.
By the way, he's playing in Times Square in the fall. So
Yes.
I'll see you there. The Sony Theater, Keeler.
Nice.
Already get.
I'll let you guys wrap this up. But we got a couple.
I was just the one question I had heard today. Tony Iommi did an interview with Eddie Trunk, and just out of curiosity for you personally, if you were more of an Ozzy guy or more of a Sabbath guy or both, because he had said in this interview it was fairly revealing that the original idea was for Sabbath to play 7 songs with Ozzy, and that Ozzy was insistent that he wanted to also do a solo set, and apparently Geezer, Bill, and Tony were trying to convince Ozzy to not do a solo set and just do the 7 Sabbath songs. And Ozzy was adamant that he wanted to do solo songs.
Okay.
So the compromise was then they cut it down to 6 Sabbath songs, and then it was cut down further to 4 Sabbath songs. And there's been a lot of talk about the curfew, but whenever you do watch the pay-per-view, you can see plain as day Bill Ward has a set list taped to his drums, and it's the 4 songs, and that was it. And that's what Tony said, that the Ozzy basically won the argument. He did his 5 solo songs and then only 4 Sabbath songs. So I guess my question is, would you have preferred more Sabbath and less Ozzy solo?
Well, it was Ozzy's night, so if he wants to play 5 songs, and his set was great, and those songs are all great. I'm sure you love them, Mr. Crowley. They're all good songs. Obviously, more Sabbath is better. That being said, by the middle of Paranoid, I turned to my friend, and again, not criticizing. We were loving every second of it. It's like I think these guys are done. Like I think as far as Ozzy and Bill go, I feel like they didn't have too much left in the tank. No. And obviously, if Ozzy hadn't played 5 songs on his own, maybe he would have had a little more to give us. But it was fine. I was expecting 5 songs from Sabbath. The set they played, the exact set they played, plus Black Sabbath.
Plus Black Sabbath was such a glaring omission, which was the 5th song that was cut.
Yeah, and that's how it was. But by the end of the night, it was it was all love, as they say, and. There's plenty of time to wonder what could have been or this or that. But there were people who were afraid Ozzy wasn't going to be able to fucking sing at all.
Of course.
Maybe we're lucky if he comes on stage. And he came through in the club.
Sure did.
Bill did a great job.
I mean, a lot of it was 2 of my friends, Keith and Bill, who went to the show, Keith Zoltano and Bill Gallucci, drove to Cleveland for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the ceremonies. And they
which by comparison was fucking terrible.
Yeah, that was not good.
Shit. That was awful.
They should have let Jack Black.
Ozzy didn't seem like he could hardly even say hello there. How's he going to perform? And it gave you that. There's nothing against any of them, any of us thinking, but we didn't. No one really knew. Then you'd see all these reports you didn't know were real or fake. Well, Ozzy's not make it. Ozzy's
right. That fucking bits and pieces thing. Remember?
Yes.
And I remember thinking I couldn't see. I remember thinking I was like, that bullshit. He's going to do some songs. But in the end, you always want more. But I think we're all pretty fucking happy with what we got. And,
sure.
And they pulled it off. They really, I don't think there's ever been a rock and roll farewell that came off this well. If you really look at it, I mean, that's so cool. You should get that in case.
Although, listen, the argument can be made that when you do 5 farewells, you're hopefully getting it right by the 5th time, because this is Ozzy's 5th farewell.
Hey,
that's true.
The Who are doing a farewell tour this summer too.
Are they?
I saw their farewell in '84.
I love the Who, but enough already. I'm not going to see that. So that's it. And we stayed up till 6 a.m. drinking and finishing our gummies and all the other shit we had. And man, I wish I could do it again tomorrow. Get on the plane, fly there on Thursday like I did last week. But it's over. We gotta look forward to something. And I'm gonna go see Ghost on the 22nd at the Garden.
All right.
That's all I got. Maybe
Nice.
I
Pantera,
wish I could come
but,
with you to that one, but I'm not going to make it. But well,
thanks for having me
thanks.
on. It's, I could talk about this for hours. I'm sure.
Well, maybe we'll have you back on. Maybe we got to get Richard Johnson on back again. Let's see what he has to say about it. The guy that
I'd love to hear some other perspectives from people who are.
yeah, maybe we can get that. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight on this special back to the beginning.
One more thing here, bootlegs. On the way out, there was
All right, let's see the bootlegs.
There was a guy out with a carpet.
All right.
Oh, it's nice.
He had this. He had the Never Say Die, the famous
No
Never
back
Say
on
Die
it?
design. Nothing on the back. But these are high quality, very nice t-shirts, and we got two for 30 pounds.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool, and local guy. So I did pick up a bootleg on the way.
You guys were talking about the bench or the bridge or whatever, and when Johnny went there the day, he's walking around, and there's Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, and actually the drummer. I forget
the new drummer. Yeah, I forget his name.
The drummer from Mastodon were there.
Oh, okay.
Singer. By the way, Lamb of God's Children of the Grave was fucking amazing. That was great because it was a little different. The tone, the way.
I love the Tool. I love the Tool Black Sabbath cover.
Hand of Doom. Was just,
oh yeah, and I love Gojira. I got the hat on.
Gojira. So much Sabbath, so much Ozzy.
I'm partial to Slayer, but I really liked how they mixed Wicked World and South of Heaven. I thought that was fun.
Was great, and they were the only band to do something like that.
Yeah,
and that was fucking great. And Kerry King lives around the corner here. I'm gonna try and get one of his picks.
No kidding, that's awesome.
Nice.
Works on his pinball machines, right? Here, I got my Black Sabbath cross from the End tour.
Woo! That's awesome.
A Black Sabbath pillow. All right, I'll see you guys next time on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. Right. Thanks for Chris and thanks for Levy for joining us. We'll be back soon to talk about something other.
See you, Chris.